So we're back with more on The Go-Giver by Bob Burg and John Mann. So this is the discussion about the 5 laws of stratospheric success. Same rules apply to every other book video. I'm not giving you a summary. I'm giving you my take on certain excerpts I read from the book. I'll say again, though, that I did thoroughly enjoy this book, and it was a good reminder why you should read, because you have access to information from people that you would have never heard from or had the opportunity to hear from if they didn't write this book. And those laws or secrets were shared to another gentleman in this story. And it's my perspective as the reader, I felt like they were talking right to me. That's why some of these, I can't say it enough, just a great reminder why you should read, because of the access to rare information you don't get from a television show. Okay. Page 23. A very useful thing to remember. Appearances can be deceiving. Truth is, they nearly always are. The first video, I don't know if I said, I did not say, but as always, there's 2 parts to these book videos. And if there's more you want to hear, go back to part 1. And if there's even more you want to hear, just let me know and maybe I can share some more info. But in the part 1, I had talked about how you perceive someone to be does not mean that's how they are. Don't trust your mind to create, an image in your head of what this person believes of you. Because if we've seen our imaginations and nightmares, our mind can go wild. So it's not the best or it's not the most accurate storyteller or historian. So when it said appearances can be deceiving and they're not always how they seem to be, it's a good lesson in that how you see people, even before you talk to them, maybe it's someone you've never talked to. The truth is you have no idea who that person is. So many times I'll base stories or I'll base assumptions on how people are just based off stories and way I see them walk or talk or what they do in their life. The truth is that was all a story made up in my head. None of that's true. Well, it could be, but I wouldn't bet on your narrative being 100% true because it came from your head. And when I'm trying to gauge who this person is, that's information I can only get from their head and how they treat me or talk to me. And that's why I said before, wait for them to tell you who they are and what they are. You don't be naive and think they're a certain way or they're not a certain way based off stories. Go in prepared, right? But the key takeaway is always be open-minded, because the stories people tell or the way they seem to act or talk may not represent the true character they are, for better or worse. So always be open-minded, because even if you come to a conclusion of the type of person they are, that can change. So open-mindedness is the key to a lot of things in life. Be open-minded. Page 26. Your true worth is determined by how much more you give in value than you take in payment. When I heard this, I thought immediately of people's hourly pay. Because so many times, and I'm going to just throw out numbers. Let's say someone said, hey, I make $30 an hour. And then someone said, I make $40 an hour. Someone said 20, someone said 50. Too many times we often associate a number to that person. We say, hey, that person makes $50 an hour. Holy cow, they make $50 an hour. But like this says, their true worth is determined by the value they give. So even if they do give value, it's just a different way of looking at it. If they said, hey, I make $50 an hour, well, what value are you giving compared to the money you're making? Instead of saying, hey, I make $50 an hour, what if they said, hey, I am able to grow people's businesses by 10% a month? And I think that's a better way of looking at it. That sometimes the monetary value behind people's names guides people to determine what type of person they are. Because another person could say, hey, I make $1 an hour. And if we just based off numbers, we may say the guy who made $50 an hour is way better. He has more worth and more value, right? But if we dive in, we found out that he grew people's businesses by 10% a month. But what if we ask the guy who makes $1 an hour, and he said, let's say he said he fed starving children and cleaned up the streets, mowed people's lawns, fixed their houses, just rattle off all these things he did just to help other people. Now, what would his true worth be? What is the value he gives people? And I like looking at things as not a monetary world, right? There's two ways of looking at it. And in that case, I don't know, it's just looking past the surface. Don't be shallow in that sometimes people get caught up in, I have this much money, I have this car, I have this house. The one guy makes $50 an hour, the one guy makes $1. What would your first impression be of them and why? Depending what your first impression would be, self-reflect, why is that? In what way do I analyze and see the world? Because if we're basing it off the money they receive, that's not the true value they give. Because while that's good for business, I would say the value the guy who makes $1 an hour provides for the city and community he lives in is great. But then again, the guy who's growing the business, what businesses has he helped growing? Maybe they're charitable businesses that help people's homes, help most people's lawns and feeds kids. There's so many variables. And I'm not saying to shut it down just after figuring out what they do, right? You can look into things as much as you want. The only thing I'm saying is not to be closed-minded at the surface with money. Don't say, hey, this guy made $50 an hour, he's better than the guy who made $1. You can look into it as much as you want, but at the very least, I like to think about the true worth is determined by how much value they give. So at the very minimum, look at, hey, you make $30 an hour. What do you do to provide value to get that in return? Or how do you provide value to earn $30 an hour? Try and figure out what they're doing. Because so many times I hear, what's your salary? What do you drive? All those, what do you do for a living? And I never hear, what do you do to be able to earn that type of a living? What do you do to be able to what do you do to be able to earn that type of car? Or maybe the better way of putting it is, what value do you provide to be able to live in that house? And it's a deeper way of thinking, and I believe more open-minded. I liked this one, and it kind of goes along the same topic. On page 43, 43. But people who were doing such great work, such as noble work, like school teachers, never got paid what they're worth. It seemed arbitrary. But what you're saying is it's not just a question of their value, it's a question of impact. And there are two amazing things about this. First, it means that you get to determine your level of compensation. It's under your control. If you want more success, find a way to serve more people. It's that simple. I liked hearing that example, and that there are, people who make such a great impact on a small amount of people. It's like mastery learning. Mastery learning, they say the best way to learn is one-on-one. You're getting a direct impact from the person. All the information, if you have questions or comments, they can tend exactly to your needs. And certain people, if we go back to the guy who made $1 an hour, he may be serving his community the same way as the $50 an hour guy, but he's doing it just on a community level, which is amazing. And it was just an understanding of why do people get paid certain things. It may not be fair. It was just an explanation, and that if he's doing it for a community, he's making such an impact on them, and he's doing great things. But if you want it on a bigger scale, you need to do it to more people. And in that example, the $50 an hour guy who scales the businesses, maybe all those businesses are worldwide, and they can reach more people while accomplishing the same thing that one guy did, but on a bigger scale. And it was something I had thought about with certain things I wanted to do in life. I was on such a narrow path of helping people where it was one-on-one in such a small group, which was great. But then I was talking, and it was, how much of an impact would that really make? Even if you changed all those people for the better to help them on what you wanted to show them, it's not going to be bad in the end. But thinking bigger and more open-minded of how could you make a bigger change and reach more people? And the truth is, nowadays it's on the internet. You have so much access to the world. And to share this type of information, any information for growth, I believe could never be bad. Because it gives people the opportunity to choose between what they know already to believe true and what may actually be true, or at least guide them farther down the path that they're on, or get them to a new level. There's been so many lessons that I've learned that I wish I would have had when I was younger. And if I did, I wouldn't be the person I am now. But what I'm saying is to be able to share those with someone watching, whether they're 10 years old or 60 years old, to be able to learn that lesson now, not to prolong that growth any longer. No matter what age you're at, the longer you wait to learn a lesson is the longer it takes you to grow into the person you want to be deep down. And some of us just don't know how to get there, because it's like people who don't want to read books. I tell them there's just things you don't know what you should even be thinking about. Like if you start a new job and they say, do you have any questions? And I go, I'm sure I do, but I just don't even know what to ask right now. That's why talking to other people, reading books, trying to really break down yourself, like what's going on in your mind, may not be the funnest thing in the world at the time, but it's what's gonna propel you forward to learn more and grow more into who you really want to be. There's a couple more. I don't want these to go on too long. Let me actually I want to read this real quick, just so you can hear it. I'm not going to talk about it, and then I'm going to read something from the book itself. So page 44. It also means there are no limitations on what you can earn, because you can always find more people to serve. The Reverend Martin Luther King Jr. once said, "Everybody can be great because anybody can serve." And another way to say that might be, everybody can be successful because anybody can give. I'll do what I might do even more, but I'm going to do one more for anyone out there who's in a relationship. So this is for anyone in a relationship, married, or in the future, or just maybe a relationship with yourself, of how we should be acting. I believe, page 78, I believe there is one reason and only one reason that we have stayed together so long and are as happy together today as we were 48 years ago. More so, in fact. That reason is this: I care more about my wife's happiness than I do about my own. All I've ever wanted to do since the day I met her is make her happy. And here's the truly remarkable thing: she seems to want the same thing for me. I'm not married, and I definitely have been not been married for 48 years. But if that's some advice from someone who has and is happy, and they're both happy, then I'm going to listen to it. That's why I wanted to share that. All right, two more, because I think these are good to hear. Page 87. People, remember this: no matter what your training, no matter what your skills, no matter what area you're in, you are your most important commodity. The most valuable gift you have to offer is you. And then page 88, it's worth 10,000 times more than all the closing techniques that ever have been or ever will be invented. It's called authenticity. Be yourself. Okay, this last bit I'm going to read is on page 85. I learned something that day when I said that my life as a mom, wife, and household manager left me with nothing the marketplace wanted. I was wrong. There was something else I'd learned over those years, and that was how to be a friend, how to care, how to make people feel good about themselves. And that, my friends, is something the marketplace wants very much, always has, always will. The Go Giver. Don't be afraid to give to people. Don't be afraid to read this book. Don't be afraid to be open minded and be your true self. Genuine, authentic, caring. Say it all the time. What's the worst that's going to happen? You get better. You get better, and that's what an open mind does. So if you want to read it, go right ahead. It's just over 100 pages. It's a real nice, enjoyable read. It's a reminder of why we read, to get these secrets that I may not have heard from someone I know personally, but to get it in a story, like I'm in that moment with someone mentoring me. The cool experience. And if you want to hear more, go back to part 1. That's it. The Go Giver by Bob Burg and John Mann.